Well, I feel it represents a collapse feature, and that is exactly what we're looking for.
This definitely appears to be a tunnel.
So-called treasure location.
I really would like to see what's at the bottom of that shaft.
They said it couldn't be done. They said the Oak Island mystery was a fool's errand. Well, they were wrong. In a stunning new episode, Rick and Marty Lagina's perseverance has paid off in the most spectacular way. Deep beneath the soil, a mysterious stone building has been found, a place deliberately hidden from the world, waiting to be rediscovered. The island that never sleeps. It's the 1700s and these three kids start digging. It's not just dirt and rocks they find. Every few feet down, they hit something that proves they weren't the first ones there. They found platforms of wooden logs, layers of charcoal, and even coconut fibers, something that has no business being in chilly Nova Scotia. It was clear that someone had gone to a great deal of trouble. But the real shocker came at about 90 feet deep. There, they found a stone slab covered in strange coded symbols. It took a while, but when the code was finally cracked, it sent a shiver down everyone's spine. It read, 40 feet below, 2 million pounds lie buried. That's right, a treasure worth 2 million pounds. From that moment on, the madness began. For over 200 years, team after team has thrown everything they have at the island. They've spent millions of dollars, used every piece of technology you can imagine, and chased every lead. But every time, the island fights back. Tunnels flood mysteriously, boreholes collapse, and the mystery just gets deeper. Some folks believe the Knights Templar, a legendary order of holy warriors, hid their immense treasure here after fleeing Europe. Others whisper that the original priceless manuscripts of William Shakespeare are buried in a lead-lined casket. And some even think it's the secret headquarters of a powerful secret society like the Freemasons.
Gerard de Villiers, he was the master of France at the time. The master was the most powerful Knight Templar in the country at that moment.
But for all the money spent and all the theories spun, the island has offered few solid answers and a lot of heartbreak. 6 people have lost their lives in the search, feeding a grim legend that a 7th must die before the treasure is found. The only thing for sure is that the more you dig on Oak Island, the more it digs into you. And now, as this latest discovery proves, the island was hiding a secret far bigger than anyone could have possibly imagined. Fast forward to 2025. The search on Oak Island was at a crossroads. The money pit had become a frustrating, waterlogged puzzle. So, Rick and Marty Lagina, the brothers who have poured their lives and fortunes into the island, decided to make a bold move. They turned their attention to a patch of land that had been overlooked for decades, the area between Lot 5 and Lot 9. This spot was just empty. For years, nobody thought anything of it, but believe it or not, new data told a different story.
Which one? This one?
To your upper right.
Keep going.
Here, right there.
Here, at this.
Advanced satellite scans and ground-penetrating radar, or GPR, lit up with a huge anomaly. The scans showed a long, perfectly straight, flat surface buried deep under the ground. It looked completely unnatural, like the top of a wall or the roof of an old building. The team's excitement was off the charts. This could be a secret room, a hidden tunnel, or a wall built to keep people out. This time, they weren't just guessing. They were armed with the most advanced technology ever used on the island. First, the GPR was used to get a picture of what was happening up to 100 feet down. Then, they brought in LiDAR scanning, a fancy laser system that creates a perfect 3D map of the site, revealing things totally invisible to the naked eye. On top of that, they used magnetometer surveys to hunt for metal and sonic drilling to figure out if the ground below was solid rock, loose soil, or most excitingly, a hollow space. Every single report pointed to the same spot. It was like a giant invisible arrow pointing down, saying, "Dig here." The data showed a huge, dense object buried deep. Marty, always the practical one, made it clear to the team they would work with science, not just hunches. The tech doesn't lie. The excavation was done with extreme care. There were no heavy machines tearing up the ground, no explosive charges. Instead, they dug slowly, layer by layer, almost like archaeologists on a delicate dig. They didn't want to risk damaging whatever was down there. Drone cameras hovered overhead, recording every movement, while every scoop of dirt was analyzed live. What they were about to uncover wasn't just another clue, it was the start of the island's biggest secret finally coming to light. But they had no idea that beneath the dirt and stone, a discovery was waiting that was so profound, so utterly game-changing, that it would shake the very foundations of the Oak Island legend. As the digging began, the first few feet were just what you'd expect. Soil, rocks, a few old splinters of wood, and the damp, cold ground of Nova Scotia. But then it happened. A moment that made time stand still and sucked all the air out of the site. An expert excavator was carefully scraping away the earth when his tool hit something with a loud, unmistakable thud. It wasn't the dull crunch of rock or the soft scrape of dirt, it was the hard, resonant sound of metal hitting a solid wall. The entire team froze. Work stopped instantly. Everyone rushed over as the operator began to carefully brush away the soil from the impact point. Within minutes, a flat, almost cement-like surface began to appear. At first glance, you might think it was just a huge, flat-top boulder, but as they cleared more dirt, the truth became undeniable. They could see clear, straight lines. They could see edges cut at perfect 90-degree angles. This wasn't nature. This was human construction.
Look, it's obvious, isn't it? If you have undisturbed soil and then a bunch of wood and then undisturbed soil, that sure sounds like a tunnel to me.
After a little more digging, a distinct corner emerged from the earth looking exactly like the wall of a room or a building. The surface of the structure had faint marks on it, places where it looked like it had been cut and shaped with tools. By now, every single person on the team was convinced. This was no fluke of geology, this was an ancient structure built by human hands and buried for a reason. The mystery only deepened when, as they followed the wall, they uncovered what looked like a threshold or a doorway. It was a clear, rectangular opening in the structure, filled in with dirt and rock. Marty himself, standing at the edge of the pit, stared down with a look of pure astonishment. He said this was the most solid, most definite structure they had ever found on Oak Island. This wasn't just a clue pointing the way, this could be the entrance itself, the very door to the treasure. You could see in Rick's eyes that this time was different. The texture of the stone, the precise angles, the curved corner of the doorway. It was all planned. It was all built with a purpose. Now, the biggest question of all hung in the air. Was there a secret room hidden behind this wall? Was this the vault that people had been searching for centuries? Or was it something else, a tunnel leading into the heart of an even bigger conspiracy? They were standing on the edge of history, but what they were about to find inside would challenge everything they knew about secret societies and the island's dark past. A scandal reburied. As the team stared at the impossible structure, a darker, more troubling thought began to creep in. How could something so massive have been missed for so long? The island has been crawled over by searchers for more than 200 years. This led to one of the craziest scandals in the island's history coming back to the surface. Truth be told, some people believe this structure wasn't just found for the first time, it was refound. The whisper goes back to the 1960s during the infamous excavation by a man named Robert Dunfield. Dunfield was aggressive. He brought in huge bulldozers and cranes and tore up the money pit area, leaving a giant crater-like scar on the island. The official story is that he found nothing but collapsed tunnels and chaos, but the scandalous theory suggests he found much, much more. According to some old, unverified accounts from locals at the time, Dunfield's team hit a solid man-made barrier deep underground, very similar to what the Laginas just found. But instead of announcing it, a panic set in. Dunfield, allegedly short on funds and worried that a massive fine would attract the government and other treasure hunters who would push him out, made a shocking decision. He ordered his team to rebury it. The theory goes that he deliberately collapsed the area on top of the structure, hoping to hide it until he could come back with more money and a smaller, more loyal crew. He never did. This scandal adds a sinister layer to the new discovery.
But I'll be back and hopefully you'll have made some more discoveries.
That's fantastic. What an unexpected find.
Are Rick and Marty the first to see this in centuries, or did another man find it 60 years ago and selfishly hide it from the world? It makes you wonder what else has been found and then lost again over the years. Some even say that Franklin D. Roosevelt, who was obsessed with Oak Island long before he was president, funded a secret expedition in the early 1900s that produced a map of underground tunnels, a map that later vanished from government archives. This isn't just about treasure anymore. It's about a history of greed, sabotage, and secrets kept not by ancient Templars, but by modern men. The Lagina team now has to face the possibility that they aren't just battling an ancient curse, but the ghosts of past searchers who may have been just as cunning and secretive as the original builders. And as they prepared to look deeper into the structure, they couldn't shake the feeling that they were treading on ground that held more than one generation of secrets. With the massive stone wall now exposed, the team noticed something strange about that filled-in doorway. Near one of the corners, the soil seemed a little looser, and some team members swore they could feel a slight movement of air, a faint, cold draft coming from the depths. It felt as if something on the other side was breathing. This had to be it. An old entrance, deliberately sealed, that led into a hidden chamber or a tunnel system. Rick gave the order immediately. They would clear the doorway, but slowly. All machine work stopped. It was time for hand tools only to make sure nothing was damaged. As they carefully scraped away the dirt and rock that filled the opening, a small gap appeared between the top of the doorway and the debris. It was just big enough to fit a camera. The team brought in a fiber optic camera, a thin, snake-like tool that could squeeze into the tightest spaces. The crew huddled around the monitor holding their breath. As the camera was pushed through the gap, the screen flickered to life and a collective gasp went through the group. Their eyes were wide with disbelief. Inside, a long, narrow tunnel stretched into the darkness. The walls were perfectly flat, clearly man-made. But the most incredible thing was that every few feet there were massive wooden support beams holding up the ceiling. And these weren't modern beams, they were hand-hewn with an old-fashioned design, confirming this tunnel was centuries old. Now they knew for sure this was no natural cave, this was a secret passageway built by people. The camera was pushed further and further down the tunnel. It was too narrow for a person to enter easily, but the camera kept going. Then, at the very edge of the camera's light, the tunnel seemed to open up into a larger space, a room. It was exactly like the kind of secret vault described in the oldest Oak Island legends. But the story didn't stop there. As they reviewed the footage, they saw something else on the stone walls of the tunnel. Something that would connect their discovery to the world's most famous secret society. As the team stared at the footage from inside the tunnel, they started looking closer at the walls. When they zoomed in on the surface of the stones around the doorway, another incredible detail was revealed. There were strange marks carved into the rock. At first they looked like random scratches from digging tools, but on closer inspection it was clear they were deliberate carvings. Some of the marks looked like crosses. But these weren't just any crosses, they were an old distinct style with flared ends known as a cross patee. This symbol is almost an exact match for the one used by the legendary Knights Templar. Chills ran down their spines. The oldest, most famous theory about Oak Island was staring them right in the face, carved in stone. We are on the verge of the biggest discovery in modern history. Like and subscribe so you don't miss the moment the truth is finally revealed. But ask yourself, are some doors better left unopened?